Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to round 9 coverage of the U.S. Chess Championships taking place in St. Louis, Missouri. In this round, there weren't as many decisive results, but two of them, one on each side, involved the leaders of the tournament and were important for the standings. So we'll take a look at both of those games. We'll take a full look at this Lenderman Caruana game and a brief look at the game between Anna Zatonskih and Tatev Abrahamyan. Look at the critical tactical moment in that game. Okay, but let's start out with this Lenderman Caruana game. Alex starts off with c4, and Caruana goes e6. So could be anything at this point, but the intent is to transpose into a queen's gambit after d5, d4. We have a typical queen's gambit declined position. Caruana chooses the bishop e7 move here. Knight f6 is more normal, but bishop e7 is a way of avoiding the pin. Sometimes after knight f6, the bishop comes out to g5, and that's a well-worn path in theory. So at this point, Lenderman decides to go for the exchange variation. He takes the pawn here and gets the bishop outside the pawn chain. Bishop to f4, c6 is played here. It's nice to play a move like c6 to control the b5 square and stop any nonsense from happening here on c7. So e3. And we have a typical setup. I would say one advantage of White has in this position is he's gotten the bishop outside the pawn chain. This pawn structure is known as the Carlsbad structure, when White has this line of pawns here and Black has this line of pawns here. And this was, for a long time, thought to be pretty good for White because of the idea of the minority attack. But it seems like Black can deal with that. It seems like Black has enough activity. For one thing, the Black's e-pawn is missing, and so this bishop is free to come out. And actually, it comes out immediately. Bishop to f5 was played here. So nothing really has gone wrong here. And but there's a very interesting move that White has in this position, and it's actually the top choice. You can play more normally with a move like knight to e2. That would be kind of a normal developing move. And let's see, the game might go knight e2. Knight d7, knight to g3, kicking this bishop. The bishop drops back to g6, and bishop to e2. And this is a position that's been seen. And, slight edge for White, typical of many opening positions. But the most popular move in this position, and the move that Lenderman plays, is the funny-looking g4. Of course, that pawn is supported by the queen, so it's not a pawn sacrifice. He's just kicking that bishop around. The bishop drops back, and now... the bishop went to e6, sorry. And now Lenderman continues with h4. There are other continuations here. h3 could be played, or the pawn could just be left there, and development, normal development like bishop d3 could occur. But h4 was played, and that's all been played before. Knight to d7. And now g5 is the first move that's out of my opening book. It's probably been played before, but it's new, at least from the point of view of my book. The move that's been played here most often is h5. And it seems like White is okay in this strange position. It's got some kind of pressure on the queen side here. Black hasn't yet decided where to castle, but it looks awkward to castle on the queen side. It's legal to castle on the queen side, but awkward. I mean, if the queen ran away, it'd be legal because of the bishop controlling this diagonal. And it looks a little uncomfortable to castle on the king side because of these pawns here. But apparently Black is okay in this position as well. Anyway, Lenderman goes with g5. And Caruana challenges this immediately with h6. And Lenderman pushes on with g6. And now the very provocative move from Fabiano Caruana. He plays the move f5, just trying to kind of isolate this pawn in a way, strand it here on g6, and maybe get some pressure against it later, which actually happens in the game, so it's kind of interesting. But there are perfectly normal moves that can be played here. For example, just knight to f6. I mean, well, it's hard to call anything normal in this position, but developing the knight to f6 is not a bad move here and keeps position about even. Seems like after f5, white is technically better, but it might be a difficult position to play. At least Lenderman seemed to have trouble finding the right moves. One idea is right here, push on with h5 and just cement this position of those pawns. But that is a compromise. It means giving up the g4 square, where white can perhaps use that for the bishop and then later the queen to invade over here on the king side. And white has a little trouble deciding where to put his king as well, so a bit of an awkward spot. But after h5, play might continue with knight to f6 and bishop to d3. And we see one point is that when these pawns came forward, they sort of artificially isolate the f-pawn. And so maybe white can try and get some pressure against the f-pawn. Anyway, it seems like white is doing okay here. Instead, Alex decided to keep the pawn back, keep the pawn on h4 here, try and keep control of the g5 square and just defend the pawn. So he dropped back his bishop to g3. And white is still okay here. It's a little tough to pin down exactly where white gets into trouble, so that's why I'm commenting on these little nuances here. It seems like, although that wasn't the best move, it seems like white is still okay with this bishop g3. So now the knight comes out to f6. White has managed to control the g5 square, but these light squares are maybe potential points for invasion. Let's see. This knight comes to h3. I guess it's going to develop to f4. This knight goes over to b6, and the knight comes out to f4, and this bishop drops back to d7. It was under attack. And now, at this point, Lenderman starts with a plan that leads him into trouble. What the chess engine wants to do here is simplify the position a bit with the move knight to h5. After knight to h5, there's probably this exchange. It looks like that knight doesn't have anywhere great to go, and it brings the queen out. And maybe there's the idea of putting some more pressure on the f-pawn. But, well, black can just castle here and defend the pawn with the rook and the bishop. And it seems like black is okay, but it seems like white is okay as well, and that might have been the best choice. So Lenderman starts with this plan playing f3. So it's another pawn move, which is aimed at keeping control of some key squares. But it turns out to be difficult to maintain this control, and it also means that the king is going to take a slow walk over here because the rook is needed to keep this h-pawn defended. This knight can move at any time, and the queen and the bishop are still lined up in a battery against that h-pawn. So this h-pawn is sort of tied down over here. So Lenderman's idea is to push f3 forward, control some of these squares, and then walk the king over to safety over here on the king side, or relative safety. At least get it out of the center of the board. But, well, the plan just doesn't seem to work. So the other idea of trading off the knight and developing the queen over here maybe is a better plan. Caruana just castles here. And Lenderman starts the king march with king f2. Now rook to c8, just normal development. Bishop to d3. Getting the bishop off the back rank and eyeing this f-pawn. It's adequately defended at the moment, but I'll put a little pressure on it. And now we can see maybe one of the points behind that rook move. The c-pawn comes forward, c5. The king continues his march over to the king side, king to g2. Surrounded by all these pieces and pawns, it might feel relatively secure at the moment. But Caruana starts opening up lines over here, starting on the queen side with c takes d4, but it pulls a pawn away from the e file over to the d file, and that weakens the f4 square where the knight is sitting, and that's actually a key problem in this position. Let's see, after e takes d4, bishop to d6, immediately taking a look at that knight on f4. Queen ran out to b3, and I think this, combined with the king march, is a fatal blow. It looks like this he is nearly losing at this point. So to hold on, the chess engine wants to defend that knight on f4, just play queen to d2, and just kind of keep things close. Just try and hold on to everything. And, the knight's defending the pawn, the queen and the bishop are defending the knight, the rook's defending the pawn, king's defending this pawn, and the queen is looking. I guess this pawn is not defended, but maybe the bishop can drop back and the queen can defend that pawn. Anyway, it seems like the chess engine doesn't have any great plans for white, but just wants to try and play this position close, keep things close to the vest here. Okay, so queen b3, a more active move. Taking a look at the king along this diagonal, maybe there's some idea of exploiting this pin at some point, perhaps. Well, it's hard to say. I guess it's, since the f-pawn is already controlling that square, it's weakening the d-pawn's control of the e4 square. Doesn't seem to be too much to the point. But Caruana unpins anyway, moves his king to h8. And then bishop to b5. And then after this, it's pretty much game over. But other moves are also losing as well. It's amazing how much trouble white is in already. And the move the chess engine likes at first is h5. Just trying to hold on to things. Keep control of this g-pawn, which, as I mentioned earlier, these pawns become weak in the long run. So h5, trying to hold on to that. But there's a very tactical response here, which I don't know if the player saw this or not, but the chess engine finds this after thinking for a little bit. After h5, the knight can hop into e4. And this knight sacrifice is not really a sacrifice, because after f takes, I bet they did see this. It's not that hard to see. It's a double attack. The pawn is attacking the bishop, and the rook and the bishop are coordinating on f4, so two pieces are hanging, and black gets back his material with a winning position. So so h5 doesn't work. If you move this rook over to defend the f-pawn, with the idea being that after the exchange the rook would be defending the knight, so this knight e4 tactic doesn't work. That leaves this pawn hanging, and so now the simple exchange, bishop takes f4, knight to h5, hitting the bishop and unleashing the queen against h4. This is losing. The bishop moves and the queen takes h4. So what else can... white can try bringing the other rook over to f1. Same idea. This prevents knight e4, this knight e4 idea. But in this position, black can bring his other knight in, knight to c4. And after this exchange, the queen drops back to c2. Now there's this exchange on f4. Like I said, this f4 weakness is key. And the knight can come into h5 and harass that bishop some more. And this is also a good position for black. I think the most accurate move here is rook to e8. Looking at this open file, and it seems like white's position is falling apart in all of these lines. So anyway, Lenderman played bishop to b5, and this also loses. But so anyway, Caruana starts with bishop takes, taking on f4, and then knight to h5, coming out and harassing the bishop. The bishop goes to e5. Looks like a good square for the bishop, but well, this knight sitting here prevents white from adequately defending that pawn on g6. And after, let's see, another exchange, bishop takes b5, queen takes b5. Now the knight comes into c4. Let's see, Lenderman brings his rook to the center, rook a to e1. The knight's hitting the bishop and he wants to protect it. Knight takes e5, rook takes e5. And then finally, after all of those exchanges, queen to f6. And things are just falling apart. There's just no way to defend all of the loose pawns. And it looks like, all of white's pawns are somewhat loose. They're kind of scattered. So those aggressively posted pawns from the opening get white into trouble in the long run. Although with correct play, this didn't have to happen. It's just a difficult position to play, I guess. Anyway, the king went to f2 to get away from the check. There's no way to defend that pawn, but he can hide from the check. The queen takes. And then rook to g1 was played to harass the queen. Queen goes back to f6, hitting the pawn. The rook goes back to h1. And then now knight to f4. So not only has black gotten rid of the white pieces that were sitting on the f4 square, he's now managed to occupy it with one of his own pieces. And very difficult position for white. I mean, black is winning here. What Lenderman tried was to use his king to chase the knight away. There's no good way to chase that knight off. I guess he wasn't interested in the exchanges. He tried king to e3 here. And the knight dropped back to g6. And then rook takes d5. So trying to get some material. But, well, this knight grabs the pawn over here. So black stays a pawn up. The rook invades to d7. Looking at the b pawn here. The queen comes to g5 with check. The king runs to d3. And now the knight picks up another pawn here. Let's see, rook to d1. Maybe the king is planning to run away behind the rook here. The queen comes into g2. I guess if queen to g2 would have been with tempo if the rook were still in the corner. But, well, this cuts off the retreat of the king. The king is now stuck in the center of the board here. Rook takes b7. Lenderman grabs a pawn while he can. But there's really nothing else to do here. Let's see, rook f to e8. Taking a look at the e-file, just ignoring these pawns over here. And just tightening the noose around the king. Let's see, rook back to c7 was played. There's a little trick. If rook takes rook, then queen takes rook. But Caruana just ignores this. He moves his rook to b8 and hits the queen. The queen goes to c6. And now this rook comes to the d file. And the rook and the knight are coordinating on that d pawn in front of the king. There's no good way to defend it. The king can't run away back to c7, so king ran to c4. Rook takes, and the king went all the way up to c5. And probably Lenderman could see the end coming by now, but he was a good sport and played it all the way out. Let's see, black played rook takes d1, knight takes, queen to g1 check. And the idea is not to win more material, but after king to c4, the king is short of moves here, and after king to c4, queen to d4 is mate, a very nice mate, in the center of the board with the rook cutting off the squares of escape from the king. So that's how that one ended, and with this win, Caruana takes sole possession of first place in the tournament. Let's see, there was one other key game I wanted to look at. This was the game between Anna Zatonskih and Tatev Abrahamyan. They are two of the leaders on the women's side. And this was a Catalan type of position from white with the d-pawn forward and the fianchetto of the bishop here. And white has just played, let's back it up, yeah, knight to, black has just played knight to h5, and white has played her knight to b5 in order to round up this d4 pawn. Typical idea here. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. White is going a pawn up with this move, and now Tatev Abrahamyan plays knight takes d4, and now there's two ways to take that knight. So why don't you see if you can figure out what is the best way to take that knight. Okay, pause the video and see if you can figure it out, or if you want some time to figure it out. There's one move that it keeps an advantage for white and another move that loses. And the way you should play here is knight takes d4. And, you know, there is this pin, but it looks like pawn to e3, and white is holding on to everything. There's also maybe this annoying exchange over here of knight takes bishop. Perhaps this is what this is what Anna Zatonskih didn't like. Getting this damaged pawn structure around her king is not all that attractive. So she took back with the queen, and that just turns out to be a huge mistake. So can you spot the move from black here? And now that I've told you what the wrong move is, see if you can find the right move for black, and then see if you can see the continuation, the combination all the way out to the end. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now, so pause the video again if you want some time to think about it. It's the bishop to c5 skewer here. Skewering or pinning the queen against the king is just a winning move here. And the knight is guarding that square, so maybe Anna thought this would work out okay, or maybe she didn't really think about it. And the problem is the knight is overloaded. The knight is also defending the queen, so the knight can't take the bishop, or the queen will be lost. But the queen can give herself up for a bishop and a rook. And so white, if the combination ended here, white would have a pawn, a bishop, and a rook for a queen, which would be about equal, so it might not be too bad. But the combination doesn't end here. There's a sting at the end of the combination, and that's the move, queen to d4 check. And after this, let's see, king went to h1, queen takes c5. After this, black is just up. Tatev Abrahamyan is up, a queen for a rook. And that's just too much. Anna Zatonskih continued to play on, probably not wanting to give up so soon out of the opening. But really, it's game over at this point, and Tatev Abrahamyan went on to win that game. And so she also took the lead in the women's championship. She's got sole position at first place. So let's check out the standings. This is the men's side. Fabiano Caruana is in first place with 7 points. Really a terrific tournament performance from him. Half a point behind Wesley So. So Wesley only managed to draw today, so 6.5 points, but within striking distance. And also still with the hopes are Ray Robson and Hikaru Nakamura at 6 points. So 1 point behind. There's 2 rounds left, and those are the 4 players in contention. I did want to mention Jeffrey Zhang here at 5 points. He's one of the junior players, and he's really having a great tournament. I mean, a huge number of draws. He has 8 draws, but he has 8 draws and 1 win, so he has a positive score against a very tough field. So a great performance from such a young player. And then on the women's side, we have cross table. Tatev Abrahamyan, half a point ahead of Nazi Paikidze. So there's the top 2 challengers here. And the pre-tournament favors, Irina Krush and Anna Zatonskih, are a full point behind at 6. So a very similar setup to what we saw on the men's side. 2 games left, 2 more rounds, and stay tuned to see what happens. See you guys later. Bye.